We're going to go ahead and get started. I would like to call to order the April 17th Richland 2 Safety and Security meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Dr. Scott.
I make a motion to approve the agenda for the Safety and Security meeting scheduled for April 17th, 2023.
Okay. Everybody who is for, give a little hand raise. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, let's see, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 yeses and no nos. Before we get started, you guys, I just want to let you know that we are streaming today, so when you speak, you have to hit the buttons to speak into the mic so that everyone can hear. We want to welcome you guys to our second Safety and Security meeting. We had a really, really great meeting, our last meeting, with a lot of great input. One of our student representatives, Kendall, she's not here tonight, but she gave us some really great insight, along with our parent representatives here and our teacher representative and Captain Rhodes and Mark Claxton as well here, who's a part of our Richland 2 family. So we're going to go ahead and get started tonight. On last week, or our last meeting, we discussed several things. Let me pull those up, just to give kind of an overview of what we discussed. But we talked about several aspects of what we think about safety and security, and in that discussion was mental health, cybersecurity and safety, building safety, classroom safety, bullying prevention, community involvement, and prevention measures. And some of the things, as we talked about last time, we focused a lot on mental health, as that is a part of safety. And we came up with resources. Things that we talked about were resources available to students, making sure that those were more visible, resources available to parents as well, making that more visible, making resources more known overall, making sure students coming from elementary have some sort of onboarding for middle and high school, and then addressing the silent sufferer students who may not have behavioral infractions but need mental health assistance. And then next up, just some of our action items that we talked about were PSAs about resources that were available, maybe coming up with some sort of assembly or onboarding for elementary to middle school and then middle school to high school, and then making sure students know who the SROs and counselors are in our schools. So tonight, we want to go ahead and start focusing on discussing more of the building safety. And I want to start with Mark, because Mark, last time we ended, and I know that we were talking about some of the resources that, like implementing yes, we had Syntagix, and then we also had, I couldn't remember the name of it, and then we also had for our metal detectors, things of that nature, and you wanted to give a little bit of insight on when you were talking about like the process of what that looks like and some things to consider. Do you want to cover that a little bit? Okay.
Sure, I could touch on that. I know last time we had a real healthy discussion around some of the issues and items regarding mental health, especially, and I think it's very important to note that days after we had our last meeting, there was a shooting incident where some young people got killed in Tennessee in a school shooting. And I think what that should really make clear is that the threat can be either inside your school or come from outside of your school. And we should be mindful of that as we prepare as best we can to defend our Richland 2 district campuses. As far as the two items that you mentioned, we have, we just past Friday, well, a couple Fridays ago now, we had a demonstration of this new crisis alert system, Syntagix, which will be rolled out fully, hopefully by the end of the month. Things are going well. We're busy training and implementing the system throughout the district. It is a push-button system. I'm sorry I didn't bring my badge today. It's probably the only time when I carry that thing. But it's a push-button identification badge that will enable faculty, staff to signal for help very discreetly. A few clicks of the badge, and they will get a response for assistance. They can also, if they continue to click on that particular badge, they'll get, you can lock down the schools and have a more a pressing response that would include, of course, our law enforcement partners and other emergency services professionals to come and respond and assist. So that is an additional layer of safety. It does not replace anything that we have in place. It does not contradict or conflict anything that we have. You know, we have our standard response protocol and the training throughout the district in regards to that. So this is just an extra layer. And I think something that's gone unnoticed is this camera upgrade that we have. We have upgraded throughout the district to Vigilon cameras. They took the place of True Vision cameras. I think it was the prior vendor. And right now we have a major upgrade that's coming close to completion, and I'll be so happy about that. But the camera, the system itself can do a lot of tremendous things. It deals with analytics and all kind of specialty features. We have high resolution cameras. We have, you know, throughout the district and all of the district properties, we have full of capabilities to pull video and get more clear, crystal clear video, and also do some other tracking features that don't necessarily need to be, discussed publicly at this venue. But that's a major thing that we have moving forward. And once again, it's something that adds to what we already have. We're not taking away or replacing anything that's working, anything we have in place. We want to make sure that everything is we just build on those type of things. So that's some people may refer to these things along with the metal detectors, as hardening of our schools. And I know I'm very sensitive to that. I'm a native New Yorker, so we have a very different way of hardening schools in New York, and it's really hard. And I've never been a proponent of that excessively, but I think there is a desperate need for us to improve the level of safety and security we have, throughout the district. And we have to use whatever, mechanisms and technologies available to do that, as long as it complements, our learning experience. We can't put anything in place that's going to take away from that primary focus of educating our young people.
Madam Chair,
Dr. Scott?
can I just add something to that? And Mark, thank you so much for that. Just wanted to add, I know right before we went out for spring break, we did a pop-up with the metal detectors. And of course, I've always been a huge component of that, but we were able to stop a student from getting ready to go inside the school with a loaded weapon. So I think we're on the right track. And the other thing that I wanted to add to that is someone asked about substitute teachers, being able to have the, the Centigic. And of course, we will have that when subs come in to school. So substitutes, you don't have to worry. We'll make sure that you guys are protected as well. So thank you for that.
And also Sodexo, some of our vendors throughout the district will have it as well. But everyone, all employees of the district will be assigned a Centegix badge that will really, there are a lot of rave reviews for Centegix, the system, if you check around the country. So we're really excited about it. And just to touch on the recovery of the firearm, I want to make sure that you understand that it was security who recovered that firearm and put first hands on it at Richland Northeast. And I think that's very important to note, because sometimes during the course of these type of operations, you don't realize how significant it is for the people who we consider to be security, how significant and important they are in conducting these operations. And I have to also point out the major supportive component of these metal detectors is with the administration, with the principals, the assistant principals, and some of the instructors. They really have gone hands-on and have been very supportive, even when it's a little bit inconvenient. We kind of inconvenience everyone's day when we conduct these operations, but it wouldn't be as successful as it has been had it not been for the involvement of some of the principals and administrators throughout these schools. So we're grateful to them for assisting us in creating a safer environment on the campuses.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, McGee.
And maybe this has already been discussed, I'm not sure, but can you explain a little bit about maybe what the training was like for the teachers or will be like for the teachers going with the Centegics and the availability of that? What's that going to be across the district?
We had, Centegics has provided as part of the package itself, some training on the system, how it works, what's behind the system, some of the items and components of the system. We've had trainings here for the entire district administrators already, and there is continuing training in regards to that. We also have what's called by Centegics badge training, basically just to go over the function of the badge and how you kind of convey or transmit whatever need for assistance you may want. So there is ongoing training. And thankfully, my boss brought that up here. So there's and I actually have it on my hip too. I don't know why, but this is the Centegics badge itself. It's a push button in the center. I'm not going to push it there because he's live, and we don't necessarily need a response yet. But everyone's going to be trained the administrators have been trained on the system itself, what to expect, and moving forward over the next several weeks, there'll be additional badge training so we can get more into detail about what each employee needs to do if they want if they need to make a staff alert, which is usually for some kind of dispute, maybe a fight or a medical emergency, which is what Centegic says is the most common use for is a medical emergency, so you can get some response. And also the ability to lock down the district will all be, right at our fingertips. So, and as the sheriff had indicated previously, those seconds that you can take off of response are very important and critical when you're talking about having a successful response operation.
Is it going to cover all schools in the district, or is it starting with high schools, or?
All schools, all employees, yes.
Any other questions on that specific thing with Centegics?
Yes, I have a comment. I'd like to know, can you give us an example of what that would look like if there is a medical emergency?
Sure, I have on my hip, people have around their neck, maybe the ID cards with the badge itself there. So if there is a medical emergency, if someone's in medical distress, you would press that button 3 times. And it will give you this haptic feedback, so you'll actually feel the vibration on the card itself, which lets you know that it's transmitted. And that quick 3 touch would then get a response. The emergency responders in that particular building will respond, and those of us, myself and the 2 managers in the safety and security department would be notified and be specifically notified. So not just notified in that building, but what room in that building. We have a mobile app, and many of the desktops, at least for the responders, will indicate room 203 is requiring a response. So it'll be instantaneous. So, and that's for what we call the staff alert. For the higher level lockdown, if something occurs in lockdown, God forbid, an active shooter, and there's a need to lock the building down, could have an actual lockdown, you press this at least 8 times, but basically you're gonna keep on pressing that thing, and you'll also get that haptic feedback, and that will place the building in lockdown. There'll be an audio component, they'll go over the speakers. The desktops will flash and indicate this is a lockdown. There'll be strobes, and there are strobes. As a matter of fact, on that back wall, there's a strobe that will flash. There will be a notification because we have an integration with the communications division for Richland County. There will be a notification sent also to our emergency responders. So our law enforcement and medical responders will be alerted that there is, that this location or whatever location is in lockdown. So it'll be a full-bodied lockdown, just implemented just by pressing the buttons, no longer having to search for the radio, try to get through on the radio, pick up a phone when, things are hectic. you tend to, be a little nervous, so you may make mistakes. This is very simple, straightforward, and it's just, arm's length away.
So the number of taps determines what need or what harm could be taking place, or whether or not it's a medical emergency versus something else?
Yeah, and it really is general, but in essence, it's 3 taps for what we call a staff alert, which could be a medical alert, a medical emergency, or a dispute, something that the person is requiring some additional assistance. And for the grand one, the lockdown, it's 8 or more taps on it. There's no in between, so it's 3 or 8. 3 for medical emergencies, disputes, something that may need just a staff response, a general staff response. Each school will have their own set of responders to that staff alert. So not everybody in the school is responsible for responding. The administrators will make a determination about who will be their emergency responders, and those people will respond to wherever is indicated on their laptop or mobile app that the
Could
need
you
is.
share a little bit more, Mark, about the training and the training for the staff to include the substitutes?
You said share with you more about that?
Share more about the training of the badge, and that's to include the substitutes and who's providing the training.
Everyone will receive the badge. That's the first and foremost. Everyone, all employees of Richland 2 will receive the badge. Along with the badge we'll have badge training. As a matter of fact, we're working on finalizing the last several sections. We sent the form out to all the administrators to pick what date and time later on in the month they will have their staff available for badge training. And they will come in and really go over what I've gone over with you. Badge training is not that intense. It's, hey, 3 for that staff alert, and 8, I mean, I may need a little extra training, but most people will be fine with just the basic level of training and understanding that, hey, this is where your assistance is. It's going to be here, and it'll come quickly. Did I answer your question?
It did. I think I'm also thinking about the substitutes, like Dr. Monica Scott mentioned. So if they're not consistent staff on campus, if we have transient individuals coming to be a part of the day, what would that training look like for them? So if you have a substitute who's new there for 3 days, if you're saying that there is more procedural training for our admin and staff now, what does that look like for people who are temporary or substitute employees?
What we anticipate doing is for those people who will be temporary employees, they will be assigned a strategics badge and be given the training, the direction, hey, listen, if you have an emergency, you're going to press that 3. If you need to lock down that building, you're going to go 8 or more. So that will be provided to them as well. We don't want anyone to be without, even if they're temporarily here or not, because, you never know who will be the one that detects a problem and can really call for assistance. So we don't want anybody to be without.
All right, and my last question is, with this particular company, do we know the number of error, if any?
The error?
Errors with the badge, with this company at all?
The exact number of errors
I mean,
that
yeah,
they've ever
have they
had?
have any errors, what those errors look like, the percentage?
No, I don't have that information there, but their reputation precedes them, as they say.
Okay.
There will always be glitches in any kind of system, especially when you're dealing with technology. But just based on our research and the information that the company has provided, we're satisfied that there'll be a minimal amount, if any, quote-unquote, errors. And really, the only error that you're going to get, and we anticipate it happening at some point, is, somebody's going to press the buttons by
Human
mistake,
error.
inadvertently. So, I mean, that's the worst that could happen, and we'll respond. It was a mistake. Okay, no problem. And we'll go forward from there. We'll use it as a training opportunity. But there are no fatal errors built into the system or that we're concerned about with it, unless you can think of some.
Well, I am thinking about human error that does happen.
Yes, ma'am.
And disruption of class.
Yeah.
And we understand that academics is so important, and how anything that gets off course, adults have a hard time getting back on course. So I wonder, when we're talking about those human errors, that we think about how to move our students and our teachers and admin quickly back into their regular course for the school day with minimal disruption if a human error happens.
Yeah. Well, that's a grand challenge. It's funny you mention that, because that's always a concern when we have these state mandated drills, the amount of time that kind of disrupts the day. But we do the best we can, and I think our primary focus, of course, is on educating the students, but we also have we place a high priority on safety and security, and sometimes, it's going to be inconvenient, unfortunately. We try to minimize the inconvenience as best we can, and I think, the system will be minimally inconvenient or invasive.
Mr. Claxton, when this alert goes off, it stays in-house, right? So it stays, if it's in a particular school, it stays either in-house or within the district. There's no outside alert for law enforcement or medical. That then has to happen once the alert goes out inside the school. School administration then alerts law enforcement. Is that correct?
For the staff alert, the three press alert, that's more of an internal thing. Of course, the lockdown,
Right.
that's going outside,
Okay.
because, like I said, we're integrating with the communications division here at Richland County to ensure that emergency services can come and respond to those situations and that involve a lockdown. But internally, that staff alert, at the point where people respond, where the administrators and the team would respond to see what the issue is, they would then make a determination, hey, we need an ambulance perhaps, or perhaps we need to have, law enforcement come to respond to this scene, or perhaps, someone from one of the counselors or psychologists, whatever it is, at that time when they make that initial response, they'll make a determination about it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Green Rivers, that was a great question you asked about the human error. I think based on the conversations that I've had, that would be a major one, because you have to have at least 8 clicks for that type of disruption. So unless a teacher is just in a panic because they see a fight, it shouldn't get to the point where there's a lockdown, because you have to click too many times to get to that lockdown. So that will probably be major. And then the other thing is just talking with staff, just the training that the teachers and the staff is going to get. I think they're going to be aware that you can't just sit this anywhere around on your desk. You go to the restroom and think, I can just scoot out right quick. They know that this is security and it's serious, and it must be with them at all times along with their ID. So that's part of it. So, I'm very excited about it. I don't really see too many things happening, and I hope not. And even speaking with the salesperson, she was very detailed about the percentages, and I think Mark briefly touched on that, since she's been doing this. And of course, we're the first in South Carolina to have this. So hopefully we don't have any, and we can move forward, and the teachers are trained to know 3 clicks, and don't think, oh, did I do 2 or 3? And then they start clicking, and now they're up to 8. So I think just staff awareness of the clicks is part of it, and making sure that it's always placed in a secure location.
Mr. Gibson?
I think also it's important that I don't want people to feel so stressed out that they think they're going to have to worry about those clicks too much. But we want to give them as basic a training as possible, make it easy to digest, make it simple, so it's not too much of a chore, because it's going to be a big enough chore to require people to have this on them in addition to their ID card as it is. So we'll do whatever we need to do to just make it more comfortable and palatable for everyone. Yes, sir.
Yes, some of my questions and comments were already made through. I thought about the human error as well, and I was like, I do like that it went from 3 to 8. So my question/comment would be, with that 3, that would only disrupt the particular teacher's class along with whoever admin is required, right? Just for those 3 clicks. Perfect. And so only with the 8 clicks would be whole school problem. The 3
Yes.
is just class. Okay, good.
Yes,
All right.
yes,
Right.
yes.
My other one was as far as even with teacher training as well. So I know you said admin is going to sign up their school to come in. With that, that's going to be at the district office, or they're going to come to our schools to do the training with us?
Thank you. My New York accent come off too strong, so I'm trying to soften it. But another question that comes up is who will be enrolling the teachers and the staff at the school. Each school will have basically a person who is going to be charged with enrolling people and issuing the individual badges themselves. And of course, my team, myself and the managers are backup support to provide whatever assistance the schools may need, because there's a lot of people. We got a lot of people in the district, so.
And that was also my other question as well, and for school personnel, if there was almost like a group or committee or one person who was designated, and it sounds like a recommendation probably would be those particular people on that team on a school level probably could talk to the subs who may be new to the school, just to give them a quick rundown when they come in that morning.
And I thank you for mentioning the subs who may pop in or pop out, because that's something that we will now make sure we incorporate into our protocol for disseminating those ID cards. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. McFadden.
So I do have a couple of questions. So the badges for the teachers, they're specific for a particular teacher, like their name badge. So they can't say, hey, I forgot my badge today. Can I borrow your badge? It's specific to that particular employee.
Yes, it is. And as a matter of fact, when the alert goes up on the desktop or on your mobile app, it actually will say your name. So it will say, L. McFadden at room 203. It will actually be that specific and detailed. So the responders will know who they're responding to and where they're responding to. But yes, the badges are assigned to the individuals.
So what happens particularly if a teacher comes in and forgot their badge that particular day? I'm sure they keep them with them all the time. However, if they come to work one day and realize I don't have either one of my badges, what is the protocol then?
Protocol is don't forget them the next day. Really, I'm sure we will have the opportunity, if necessary. Let's say this, well, I really want to make sure I have this thing today. Then if they would contact us at Safety and Security, I'm sure we'll be able to accommodate them. But primarily, it's like, oh, don't forget that. It's like forgetting the ID card. Sometimes that happens to people.
Thank you.
Okay, so anybody has any more questions about that specific thing? Okay, so we'll move on to, I know that we had discussed before and talked a little bit about the checkpoints and the metal detectors, and now deciding or making decisions or thoughts about what do you guys feel about more metal detectors, if we could just have a discussion about that, or more pop-ups, what are we thinking? And whoever, feel free to, this is a very open discussion, so. Mr. Gleason, go ahead.
In regards to pop-ups,
Yep.
we will continue
Okay.
random unannounced pop-ups throughout the district. So we'll continue that effort. It is, it's kind of labor intensive, but it's necessary. And it's something that gives an extra layer of comfort to people. And we want to make sure that we're doing whatever is necessary to continue that. And I have to, I find myself a lot of times, because it's really the luck of the draw. It's randomized. It is sporadic and random. Some locations, unfortunately, have been picked multiple times. But it's just the luck of the draw, however it goes, and we want to make sure that to maintain the integrity of it, that we continue that. So sometimes you maybe pick 2 or 3 times in a row. That's how the machine falls, and we want to make sure that we are proceeding with the highest level of integrity and basically blind and letting the machine dictate which spots we pick at what times. So we will continue those random, unannounced metal detectors.
Do you feel that the element of surprise has been more effective than just say like having a stationary pop-up? I guess what are your thoughts on that? Because a lot of people have asked, like the community have asked about having stationary pop-ups, or stationary metal detectors versus the pop-ups. But do you feel the element of surprise has been more effective?
I think, you see, I struggle with this a little bit, to be honest with you. I think it is effective, metal detectors. I think that perhaps there are times when people may think they are much more effective than they actually are. But what they are a deterrent. So the visual really is a huge deterrent. So that's why when sometimes we get complaints that people say, well, they saw you loading the machine somewhere else. Well, if they saw it, then we effectively deterred them because they anticipated that, hey, they're probably going to be at my school tomorrow. So job well done. Whatever it is, we're all trying to do the best we can with what we have and what's available to us without interfering with our primary responsibility about educating these young folk. And so I'm clear it is a deterrent. I think we just have to be mindful and careful about how we depend on one single piece of technology to provide the highest level of safety and security. I think it has to be a combination of things, and they have to be layered upon, and a lot of times it has to be random and unannounced in order to be really effective, I believe.
Madam Chair. Yes, and I just want to add something to that because, I'm going to always say I'm a huge component of metal detectors and will probably say that until the day I die. But with that, I think about having insurance. Do we want to wait until we get sick to get insurance, or do we want to have insurance that we pay for and we never use? That's the way I look at this metal detector. I look at it as having insurance. Whether it's cancer insurance, health insurance, whatever it is, you don't want to wait until you die and then you have no insurance. So that's the way I see a metal detector. I know you said it's a deterrent, but guess what? It works, and it was proven, a couple of weeks ago. So look at a metal detector as insurance. We pay a whole lot of money in insurance that we never use, but we have it and we feel safe because we have it.
And I agree, and Dr. Scott, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I believe in being proactive, and I think that's important for us. We're charged with a major responsibility, safety and security of these young people and our faculty and staff. So I believe in being proactive, and I'm willing to try these different things and to monitor them, see what the data tells us about how effective they are, and then proceed accordingly.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Moody?
What's the feeling of the board right now? Is the goal of this to increase the number of metal detectors? Is it to continue to evaluate the number that we have right now, the effectiveness of the pop-ups, or is there a goal moving forward? Are we looking to add a certain number by a certain time, or what's the feel of the board?
I think that's what we've got this committee for, is for everybody to give input on that. I do think that right now we kind of are looking at what we have and how effective the pop-ups are, and just doing the protocol that they spoke of earlier, which from my understanding of what we've seen over the past few weeks has been since that I think we had the several weeks of disruption, but it's been really effective from my understanding and what I can see so far. The pop-ups have been.
What is the feedback from the administration, from the schools that have had these metal detectors pop up? What are their thoughts and, questions, concerns, things like that?
So far, I have not personally heard of any concerns, but I will say that we did get a thumbs up from, yes, we do have somebody here who can speak to that. Would you like to come up and speak to that for us? I will say that Sheriff Lott did give us a thumbs up.
Thanks for letting me join you. to your point, real quick, I've heard several.
Sorry, will you just introduce yourself for the
sorry.
camera?
I'm Matt Sherman, principal of Blythewood High School. I've heard the word priority a couple times. I want to remind everyone that teaching and learning can't happen without feeling safe. So this is the number one priority. So I just want to recenter us there. I share Mr. Claxton's energy and support of the pop-ups. It's been successful. And as he's pointed out well, it is a deterrent. You know, it needs to be seen, it needs to be felt. But also to his point, it takes manpower. It takes a lot. And I appreciate that when I get that email the night before, Matt, be prepared. We're going to need 10 of your staff and 10 tables and these things. My response isn't going to be, tomorrow's not good for us. Safety comes first. So it'll always be a priority. But there's a lot of moving parts, and to say that, well, we can't do that today because we have IP meetings that morning, or we've got a parent coming in, or you contact me, you want to meet with me the next morning, those things still have to happen, but still we got to find the manpower to make it happen. So to his point, it's successful, but it takes manpower. They do a great job. We bring vendors in. He brings everyone he can that's not currently occupied doing their jobs elsewhere, but there's still not enough staffing for the pop-up. So we make it successful, and I appreciate him saying that we are in this together. It does take the administration to make this work, but it takes a lot of manpower. And so for this to be successful, not only beyond the pop-ups, I still think that we need to reinforce the pop-ups. You know, in a perfect world for an administrator at Blythewood High School, and these guys say, when I walk in the school at 7 o'clock in the morning, they're there ready to go, and they've got all the staff they need, they got the support they need, they say, Matt, go get your day started. That's an aha moment for me. I continue to monitor my building and receive students. And the reality is, yeah, we say we open up at 8:45, 8:50, those students all come walking in at one time. So now the reality is, it was unannounced. They still have all the things we have to go through. We're still working through learning that process, and okay, maybe we need to encourage a different type of backpack moving forward to make this a little bit easier. Maybe there is some different things we can do to encourage, okay, if you don't have that metal pencil box, there's the learning that takes place. We're still learning that. But the reality is it's been successful. It is needed, it's wanted, but it takes a lot of manpower. So when I think about this going beyond pop-ups right now, and this is every single day, I'm all for it, but I don't have the manpower. I do get worried in the morning we're having a pop-up, but I think about who's at my parking lot because I pulled that person. Where's my extra help in the atrium because that was my spot. When I pull that assistant principal from the cafeteria just to be available, they're now helping me with that. So we're pulling folks, but also I've got 200 staff with unencumbered time that are getting ready for the day and ready to receive students. So there's only so many layers of folks I can pull into that process.
So would you say probably, if it was your recommendation, that a better use of spending would be for manpower?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
And to your point, I heard, if this were standing at school, we receive students every single morning. What happens the rest of the day? Do we have a staff that helps us receive students in the morning? Is that a reduced staff that mans it the rest of the day? Is it only in the mornings? Is this the normal process every day? You come through this door regardless of who you are, because this location is manned every single day. I recognize we need insurance. I'm with you like that as well. I'm a parent first and foremost, not only for my own child, but my 2,100 kids every day. I think like a parent. So I think about, it's not just the morning when they come in. We have open campuses. Seniors have earned the opportunity, and we have to have the seniors go get lunch. That helps us get through our lunch opportunities. But when they come back in, are we screening them again? So I think about the layers of the day, and school doesn't end at 4 o'clock. I've got 500, 600 students still at school right now in co-curricular and extracurricular activities. Does the screening continue then? So logistically, I'm thinking about start to finish of a school day. When is it available? Do I identify certain locations? Is it manned? And to Mr. Claxton's point, I appreciate that we were successful and we discovered a weapon at campus. But he had a trained expert who recovered that, a security officer. So if I pull that classified staff member and say, hey, I need you to help me, this is your new duty in the morning. When they come across that, what's their response going to be? We have some passionate classified staff that sign up, and I wish I could pay them all more. They love kids, they want to be there. But if I came and said, hey, I need you to take on this new duty next year. Every morning I need you to help me with screenings and be prepared. We're going to do some training. You may recover a weapon. I don't know if I'd still have that classified staff member. There's other jobs that don't have those layers of stress. So these are the common things that every administrator is thinking through is we work hard to recruit the best, we want to retain the best, but we also have to maintain that number one priority is safety. I can't keep staff and I can't keep students happy, and teaching and learning won't happen if they don't feel safe, and that's why we're here now. There's layers and layers of this being successful, and we've got a great start. I just hope we're more successful where we start before we start thinking about, if you want to put them in every single school, great. I'll take on the 20 extra staff that help me do that each and every day, and I'll put them to work every day. I promise you.
Thank you so much. You guys have any questions, Mr. Sherman?
Well, I don't have a question. Mr. Sherman, thank you so much for sharing that, especially with the prior notice. I know how dreadful it can be to get a call the morning of when you're not sure what staff is already called in and not coming in today, not feeling well. So I think that will probably be one of our recommendations, that principals get at least a 2 to 3 day notice that this is what we're planning to do, and then they just have staff. They don't have to share that with staff because you don't want it out, but have those people there that, you know, this week I just need extra staff in the morning. We're going to be doing some things. So I think that's great. The other thing I want to say is, those of you who know that I've been talking about metal detectors, and you're going to continuously hear me say that. I've been saying it since 2012, and I will continue to say that. We need to figure out a way that we can go to some of these schools that actually have them in place. Now, Mr. Anderson had an opportunity to go to Myrtle Beach last year or the year before, and he spent quite some time at these schools. I tried to go, but that's a whole different story. But my goal with this committee is that we take this team to some of those school districts that actually have metal detectors in place and see how they run from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. Now, I had an opportunity to do it on my own in Spartanburg, and it worked well, only because they planned for it in advance, and they knew the people, and they had already hired the people. So we need to see the manpower go to a school district that has the same amount of students similar to what we have. If we know that our largest school has 2,000 students, then we need to go to a school district that has metal detectors in place, Myrtle Beach, and hopefully Mr. Anderson can speak on that, because he, and I'm not sure someone else, spent a lot of time in Myrtle Beach with these metal detectors, that they can share with us what they saw while they were there, how long it took. Now, I had an opportunity in Charlotte to visit as well, but of course, that was an alternative school. They only had 400 students, so it was quick. It wasn't as much manpower, but we need to know that, and then we take a visit to that place, and then we can come back with experiences that we've seen and ideas that we said, we saw this didn't work, or we saw that, or maybe if we're considering moving in that direction, that we're going to need this many teachers, we're going to need this in place and that in place. Because I think having a discussion, it's like having a discussion in the dark, trying to find your keys in the dark. It's not going to help until you actually witness it for yourself. Even here at the schools, I have not gone to one here in Richland too, and I do plan to do that. But until you see it and know what's going on, it's like I said, trying to find your keys in the dark with this discussion.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Moody?
I 100% agree with everything you just said. And just to reiterate your point, I too am 100% on board with metal detectors. I've always, I understand the thought that the more you kind of put up how the environment changes, but I have Mr. Sherman is my daughter's principal. And I will tell you 100% of the time that if I have to choose between her comfort or her safety, I'm going to take her safety, because at the end of the day, I want my daughter coming home to me. So I know from, we've talked about this, but one of my biggest concerns when we started this discussion a little over a year ago was I talked to a few teachers, and their first response was, I guess that's something else we'll have to do. And that has become such a normal response for teachers, that whenever something new comes in, it just piles up on their plate. I think the thing is these teachers, because of exactly what you just said about a safe learning environment, it will be difficult. They will do it, and I think it is our job to accommodate as best we can that request of getting as many people in that school to help them accomplish this as often as possible. So I think, Mr. Sherman, that was exactly what I was hoping would happen, was that you'd come up and talk, because I wanted to hear a little bit of feedback. So thank you.
Ms. McFadden?
So I agree as well. And Mr. Sherman did mention that the gun that was recovered was from a trained security officer as opposed to a teacher that he would have to pull in the morning. And then we did get an opportunity, Dr. Scott and I, to talk to our Director of Security, Miss Lydia. So the issue is that we're going to need more trained security. So we're really going to have to take a deep dive into our budget and adjust some salaries because she's got people that are leaving her post to go to Service Solutions because they pay more. So we need to look at, and I'm going to challenge our budget committee and our finance department that, we're starting to shake up some salaries so that we can get the money that is needed for our teachers and for these security officers who actually put their lives in the way every time a gun is discovered. And that's something that, I think gets brushed under the rug. When something goes off, it's our security officers and our SROs that have to run into that situation with a gun, loaded gun, knife, knuckles, any of those type of situations where you have grown boys and girls throwing hard blows at each other a lot of times. So we want to get people who are able to actually be able to de-escalate the situation. So I'm very interested in making sure that we get the trained staff in there and pay them well for what they're doing.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sherman. Oh, Mr. Anderson. Thank you. We may have a few questions or comments.
Sure. I'll address Dr. Scott's comment. I have had an opportunity to visit several schools, not only in Horry County, Greenville County. Mr. Claxton and his team have gone to Rock Hill, who we use the open gate from. We've talked to Charleston County schools. I appreciate Mr. Sherman coming and Mr. Claxton's comments. Staffing is the biggest challenge, and all those schools say that. Mr. Claxton and I will continue to, through Ms. Gregory, give the board at least, and then we can give the safety committee as well our next few planned ones here in Richland too, because I know your travel may be difficult to go to another district, but to show you what we're doing in Richland too, so you can kind of get a first-hand scene of how it goes. We also have a great relationship with USC. We actually, before we purchased our first open gates, USC let us borrow theirs, and so we have Mr. Dwayne Williams, who's our emergency service manager, Mr. Claxton and Ms. Williams have been down, and they initially got trained and watched what USC does, and so there's a lot of options, I guess is the best way to look at how we do it. The analogy I've given, and I'm just speaking to or echoing what Mr. Sherman, Mr. Claxton said, is go to the courthouse or go to somewhere where you're not trying to funnel in 2,000 people. It's a lot less people. But at an airport, if they had one metal detector open, we'd all be extremely frustrated trying to get through the airport, and we'd all miss our flights. And that's the analogy: is if we don't have enough staff and have enough open, our kids will miss class. And yes, they have to be safe and secure, but also we got to get them to class on time. And so, unfortunately, to do it with fidelity, to do it so that we aren't just, hey, sorry, just don't worry about it, just go, 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 go. And so you have people like Mr. Claxton who can notice the trends of what, oh, that kid looks weird today. Let me make sure he comes over here. It is what it is, and it is required staffing. But I think that's way more than what Dr. Scott had initially asked, but that's kind of my feedback that I've seen. The other thing, my mind's rattling, is kids learn. The airport again. We all know now when you go to the airport, all right, take my shoes off. I know what I got to take out of my bag. And as we've done more and more, and Mr. Sherman can say at Blythewood, the more we've done, the better the kids have gotten at knowing, all right, I got to take this stuff out of my bag. So as well as the initial staffing may be a lot, there's probably that sweet spot where we know where the staffing level can be here, because the kids now know, all right, I know what I got to do. I know what I got to do. And then throughout the day, for example, we would probably, I believe Richland 1, who's now doing randoms, but they're also doing, I believe, one a day. Is that Mr. Claxton? They have like 2 people who basically who stay there one door through the day. So they're doing a little hybrid of what we're doing. They they have more staff than we currently have, and so they're able to do a little bit differently. So the goal would be to extend it, but extend it down to a one a day, because we don't need to funnel 2,000 kids through it in 30 minutes. So again, it's a solution. I think that's the biggest thing is to think about is all these are layered. The Centegix badge, the cameras, the other things you're talking about, facilities that we hadn't mentioned. All of our entrances, you have to go through one secured entrance. All doors are locked. All locks have been changed. It's a glass, bullet-resistant glass. So the incident in Nashville, that wouldn't have happened because they would not have been able to shoot through the glass, for example. And so those and the doors are locked. And so those things we've already done. And we continue to upgrade as we need to. And so it's a balancing act. I'm with Mr. Moody here, 2 kids in the district, and I want my kids to come home and be safe. But I want them to not feel like they're not safe, if that makes sense. To not have that overbearing feeling of I'm in a situation where it just feels like I'm always being watched or always being in a setting that I'm actually what's about to happen, because I don't that point. So that's the balancing act, and we've just got to figure that out. So I rambled enough, Ms. Nash.
Thank you so much. Do you guys have any questions, thoughts, or comments?
And we've prepared to Ms. McFadden's. We have given our several recommendations from the operations department, but in this scenario, we have given what it will cost to our projected staff with contracted staff for in our budget preparations that was submitted before spring break to Dr. Miley's staff. So it is expensive, but that's using contracted services. Again, to Mr. Sherman, I promised we didn't talk. He stole what I was going to say if I had a chance to speak, but teachers have a lot on their plate, and we want to recruit and retain them. And I couldn't, and I'll just be frank, it was thank God it was Mr. Claxton who did the situation in R&E. And I can't imagine any other staff member who had to go. I wouldn't have been able to do what he did when a gun was through there. And so I really think it'd be prudent of us to think through. And again, you'll have a lot on your plate, a lot of things that are going to be asked of you for budget wise, but to really think that, hey, it's a lot to ask a teacher who hasn't been trained to now be confronted with possibly a weapon. Do we want to put them in that situation? And with everything else on their plate, and it's so hard to recruit and retain teachers, I think it would be prudent of us and wise to potentially consider that. And that's all I can ask if you consider that, because y'all have a ton of priorities.
Mr. Anderson, let me ask you a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Because on the school sites that I visited, they did not have teachers at that point when they were doing metal detectors. So have you gone to like Rock Hill or Charleston, Myrtle Beach or Greenville, and you witnessed teachers? Because in my 2 experiences, they did not have teachers, and I don't want to alarm teachers or have teachers nervous and scared thinking that they will be there, because in my experience, and I can only speak for my experiences, they had security that the teachers would be towards the end just greeting them as they come through, or if security noticed something, then they would give that signal to the teacher or teachers that were there, and then that teacher would know what to do. So I don't want to send this message out that teachers are going to do that, because that has not been my experience in 2 different school districts. So has that been your experience where they use teachers?
No, ma'am, and I'm sorry if that was not trying to give the impression, and you're correct. It would be security. We've had school admin. What I was trying to make clear is that if we decide if the board and us as a district and this team decides to do this, that if we're going to do it, we have to have the staff, and we don't want to pull teachers into this. That's kind of my roundabout way of saying we don't want teachers to do it. But no, ma'am, I've not seen. It's been security staff. It's been people who have been trained. In Richland too, we've been using administrators, using staff. We do have a lot of security. We try to use as much security as possible, but at times we do have to pull, like Mr. Sherman said, whoever he can pull. But they're not out there by themselves. Every spot at least has multiple security staff that are with them. So thank you for clearing that up.
Oh, thank
You're
you,
welcome.
because I just wanted to make sure
Yeah,
that no
you're
one was
right. Good
thinking
point.
that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Anderson, you had mentioned that the doors are locked. Are the doors locked only during that particular time when they're doing the metal detectors, or are the doors locked all day long so a student can't go and open a door and let someone in or something like that?
Our processes and procedures, even way before today, has always been locked doors, especially all exterior doors are supposed to be locked, other than arrival time when you have they're coming in their dedicated spots. So to answer your question, yes, during the day there should be only one unlocked door, and that's the unlocked door that goes into the secure vestibule that's now locked, that has bullet-resistant glass, bullet-resistant drywall. And then you get screened if you can come in or not. And so there's a visual, the person can see if there's distress or anything, and then you can let them in. Now, Mr. Sherman, any principal, anybody that's been in the school, you guys know the propping of the doors, the letting people in, that is a constant battle. And I know Mr. Sherman and his colleagues, Mr. Gibson can tell you it's something they do a great job on, but it's hard to get that message to everybody. And so we continue to work on that. We're updating not only that badge, but this badge with our card access system. We're in the process of finalizing that procurement this week, I guess, so that we can get more access on doors. Because some of the people who do prop open doors are custodians who are trying to go back and forth. Not blaming them, I'm not saying they do this, but at times it's easier for them to run out real quick and prop that door. Teachers maybe, recess or something like that. So we're going to put more access controls on our exterior doors so that teachers and staff don't have to be worried, oh, I lost my key or I left my key, because technically they're supposed to be wearing this and they're supposed to be wearing this. And so they can now use that quickly to get in and not have to go beat on the door or let somebody in. So that's not always an issue, but again, it's a layered approach. And so we have to, not one thing is going to cure it all, but as anything that's ever bad happened in a school till this day, they haven't gotten through a locked door. If you watch the video from the Nashville situation, that person walked through unlocked doors. And so we keep telling that. And so if the audience, anybody listening on, watching online, tell your students, tell your staff and friends, lock your doors, especially those exterior doors. That will definitely help save some lives.
And then also, if I'm, in addition to the access control upgrades that we're doing, which we're looking at trying to integrate the two technologies, the access controls with our camera technology, so that hopefully, if it's possible, if it's feasible, an open door would automatically trigger a camera on it, which would be very helpful for us. Once again, it's just another layer. So that's something that we're also, just trying to work out the kinks and see if it's practical, feasible, or possible.
And I only had one question, Will, and for the recommendation for the budget, is that for manpower for pop-ups or manpower if we decided to go with the stationaries?
What we have put in the budget request is for the high schools to have 180 days of metal detectors.
Okay.
So that's what we've put in right now.
Okay.
But we can work with this committee,
Okay.
the board, if we want to adjust that. But that is currently in the budget request that you'll see tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Yes, it's tomorrow. Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
I have a question. So so that what's in the budget, what y'all are presenting is going to be just for the initial purchasing of the metal detectors and manpower. So you're saying it's just for the high school. So after that, maybe next year, we could get it for the middle school, and so the initial bulk for the high school will be paid for. And then the following year, we can maybe look at middle school.
Correct. The
Okay.
biggest cost is the staffing. I mean, you've got you've got the metal detectors itself, you'll see in the budget, I don't remember off the top of my head, or maybe $400,000. I mean, this is a lot of money, but the staffing is pushing $2.5 to $3 million. If you think about the number of staff, the hours they're working, 5 high schools, 9,000 students, we got to get through in 30 minutes basically. It's just going to require a lot. And so, but you'll see that. But the capital is a one-time cost. They keep them at their school, and then the staffing will be the other issue. And this is a projection. This is just for projection purposes for the budget. When we do a contracted services procurement, then we can try to get a better understanding of exactly what. But based on our initial research and asking for quotes, this is what kind of where we're at in terms of what it's going to cost us.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so next up, I kind of definitely wanted to touch on cybersecurity and safety. I had the opportunity to be with Ms. Green Rivers at the Blythewood SIC, Blythewood Middle SIC that they had, what was that, like 2 weeks ago, I think? Was that 2 weeks ago? I can't even remember.
Yes.
And they had the education specialist for safety and cybersecurity from the Attorney General's office. They have a very robust program that they're doing, and I believe that she said there's only 5 states in the nation that are doing that. Is that correct?
That is correct. And this is a free service through our South Carolina Attorney General's office. There's a simple request that's done online, and they send out a representative to the school to discuss with students, teachers, and community members, to include parents, age-appropriate content regarding internet safety. We received a wonderful, I think it was just a quick backdrop of what could happen at the school, up to 1.5 hours for the presentation. It included privacy, power of the word no, looking and discerning red flags, apps, new apps that are coming on that are targeting young people. She also talked about cyberbullying, and then there's content related to parents to include inappropriate contexts, privacy devices, Google reverse, and lots of different things, honestly, as a parent and the people in my community really didn't know about. We have some intelligent students who are quite tech savvy. They have learned how to break through all kinds of firewalls, including using devices that are given by districts. I won't just say our district, I will say nationwide. But the wonderful thing is that there is this free service that is available to our district where a representative can come at any hour. So that would be either during school or after school to provide the services that are content approved from ages 4 to 100 plus. As long as you are available and open, they are available to come and present.
Thank you so much. And there were so many things. I think one of the probably most staggering things that she said, and I think that a lot of our students may not realize, is that when you send inappropriate things, that can go with you. I believe she said it was 10 years. They went back for 10 years of her social media to look and see what she had done before she could ever even be hired. They take this very, very seriously. And as you guys know, the landscape of sex trafficking and all of that, a lot of that is done through our cybersecurity. So, and just the internet itself. It can be a good thing, but it also can be very destructive. And I think that when we were talking about this committee, we were going to look at every aspect of safety and security that we could possibly think of, and cyber was definitely one of those things that's on there. We see that more and more with cyberbullying and things of that nature, and think it's very important. We'd love to have you guys' feedback about that, but I definitely think that is a huge recommendation that every single one of our schools should take seriously and have, I can't remember her name, because she would be is it just her? I think it's just her and another.
They have a few representatives that can come out, but she was just one that I was able to reach out to. So once the Google form is completed, someone from that office will contact the school.
And they can be as large as an assembly. It could be as small as, like, say, a parent group. It may be even something that we could offer here for parents for more like she said, age appropriate, because, there's ways that they can talk to children about certain things, but then also ways that parents can get a greater understanding of some of the very, very deep things, and knowing how to basically child-proof or just make sure, monitor what your kids are doing. I think one of them was it Roblox? Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Roblox, yes. I can remember. It was something. But yes, have any thoughts or anything about the cyber?
Yes, it actually made me think about maybe that would be a good partnership with our TLCs in the district, because I know our TLCs already come into our classroom to teach our students some of this information, through the works from the district. So maybe it would be more of the specialists working with TLCs to be more intentional and explicit about how they are communicating this with the students, and maybe that could lead to the district-wide parent town hall with the specialists along with TLCs there, probably doing roundtables or discussions where they can work with community members and parents.
That is a wonderful idea.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Claxton?
see, I got this decorum and protocol down. And I apologize for operating outside of it. It's not my normal forum. I wanted to pass on that I had spoken to Captain Rhodes, and he indicated that he had personal obligation tonight. He was unable to attend, so I wanted to make sure that I passed that on for him.
Thank you. I knew he was busy. Have any other thoughts about kind of the things that we've talked about and discussed tonight, or any other recommendations that you guys would like for us to jot down? And then we can just kind of start building for our next meeting about maybe like thinking about some goals that we want to accomplish. As far as next, we can talk about, I think we have on here, prevention measures, and then also working with the community. It would be what our next topics would be for the next time. Any thoughts on that we want to add to that?
No, I think that's great. I think we need to stick with the schedule that you have, because once you get to that parental community involvement, then that takes us into that town hall meeting, and I think that's what a lot of parents want to be a part of. So I think if we get through the next two, and then therefore we can have the input from the community as well as the parents, and I think it shows us that we're on schedule. As well as one of my recommendations, and I think I mentioned this earlier, is having a budget for committees, because that budget could be one that we use as a committee to go and visit these schools if this is something that we're considering. And I know we want to go while school is in session. We don't want to go during the summer. We want to be able to see them in action. So I love to recommend to the full board that we have these committee budgets, which allow the committees to go and gain knowledge and experience.
Okay, you guys have any thoughts or comments? We actually are almost 18 minutes ahead of schedule right now. So do you guys have any thoughts or comments? Those are my favorite words, ahead of schedule. So you guys have any thoughts or comments that we need to, either things that we need to add as far as like recommendations that you guys had based on what we discussed today, which was cybersecurity and then the metal detectors and pop-ups and manpower? Okay, well, then can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Madam Chair,
Dr. Scott?
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Okay, well, we are adjourning this meeting for April 17th, Safety and Security. You guys have a great night.